Hello, everyone. Good morning. We're here again for our PodAlchemy session. And today, me and Nadia, we were doing our recap and we kind of understood some commonalities between our own different experiences in 2 points of the globe. But both of us have been engaging with our shadow. At least in my case, I've been really, um, I feel the work with the shadow instead of being intellectual, which I've done before, but it was very superficial. And now, for the first time in my life, I am seeing the shadow embodiment, which is different. It really comes from this awareness, this embodiment of I'm either embodying my shadow or I see my shadow in others. And it has been a very hard process for me. I was even sharing with Nadia that for the longest time I was avoiding my Svadhisthana practice. I was trapped in Muladhara practice, which is the Muladhara work is more working on our fears and this getting out of the survival mode, having more faith in life. I think that was the work I did with Muladhara. But this week I felt for the first time, and I shared with Nadia, I'm ready to dive deep into Svadhisthana work and make it my daily practice. Um, Yet it also came, at least for me, I'm an emotional eater. So it came up with a lot of binge eating on sugar. Not so much chocolate because I don't keep it in the house. It's even weaker, a weaker point for me. But yes, sugar. So I was eating desiccated coconut, um, dehydrated coconut, while engaging with the shadow. And I feel, I don't know, I feel it's important to kind of show and share how it is, what how different it is to engage with the shadow from an intellectual perspective, which is reading the books, going on to courses and workshops and engaging with the material um, through through an external guide, versus, which is what I've been doing now, um, working with the shadow energetically and seeing the mirrors outside of me and inside of me. It's kind of like a game. I really feel it is a game. Sometimes I am leaving the shadow. I am not. I'm no longer myself. I really see those forces in, and I connect with them. And then I also have this opportunity to go with my life and through my triggers identify where other people uh, they kind of like make a couple with my own shadow, and we interact, and then they become my mirror, and they are the external embodiment of the things that I have within me.
Yeah, well, shadow, it's also at the moment, you said planetary wise, it brings it up. I feel more and more, the more you go out of, I like that word matrix, the more you go out of the common consensus of just staying in the rat race, there is this space being created, even if you are still part of it somehow. And then you go into a certain frequency where you go into synchronicity with others. It's very interesting how it can be planetary or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just very intense at the moment how much synchronicity is in it. Like, you are in Portugal, you have your life, I'm here in India, I have my life. And then we've seen quotes of teachers online that have literally 2 hours after we have spoken about something, they're quoting something without they wouldn't know what we just spoke about, but it's just in the field. And if you are not, or let's put it that way, if you have enough dedication to something, and you're not so sidetracked, you go into the synchronicity with others. And at the moment, the shadow is very much, I feel the shadow is going through another round. Maybe also because we're coming into Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, the planetary situation. Basically, with the shadow, we're just being very much confronted with ourselves. And I'm going through a big piece myself, and I am not really truly intellectualizing the shadow. I have that less than you, this need to intellectualize. I find in my work with people, it helps to understand the shadow. And it helps to understand why it is. It helps to understand. But in the first place, we need to feel it. And it's this feeling to go in the body, and it comes often without a story. It's just this feeling that you feel something in your Swadhisthana, and you feel something is off, and you feel that you are not reacting. Like there's different parts in your system. You have these different parts. Like one side of you is walking left, and the other one is going backwards, and the third you is going up, and the fourth you is going down, and it's creating a whole big of confusion. Meanwhile, you think you're just saying one statement. And everybody around you who is perceptive sees the one going left, right, up, and back. So we think we are very clear about what we portray to the outside, but people who tune into us, they see way more than we think. So that's why the mirroring is so important. It's this, the shadows basically is all the aspects of our being which is hidden. The shadow is what we are not, we ourselves are not consciously aware of, or we have not healed yet. Those things which knee-jerk us, which I feel sometimes backstab me, or what I define as me. And what I like to do is, and we kind of like to play with that, to give it names, you know, to give certain aspects of your personality names. I've just discovered a new shadow of mine, which is like a fluff ball. So, you know, this, and there's sometimes a shadow behind the shadow, and this makes a whole big Shakespearean play. And it's when you actually tap into this energies of that particular shadow. Me too. I've rediscovered Snickers this week, and I do not like this this mass production foods, because I know what's in there. But it's just this urge also to pacify myself. It's like a pacifier, to pacify myself with this sugar, to calm down my nerves. The shadows is not something that we particularly like mostly about ourselves. It's aspects of the self that we push away, that we do not want to see ourselves, but definitely do not want others to see. And there's a lot of shame connected to it, a lot of maybe also guilt. But the more we see our shadows, like you said before, the more we also see other people's shadows. We can see whatever we've healed in ourselves, we can also see in the other, and we actually become better judges, you know, judges of character, and we develop the better inner compass. But such a complex theme. It's such a complex thing, even to talk about it here, because it really works without words mostly.
Now, that has been something that you have been teaching me, and like, to me, I remember it was very important in my process, because I really tend to intellectualize and get trapped in the hooked in the whys, and I don't feel. I'm opening myself up to more and more feeling the body. but for the longest time, I don't know what is feeling. Even when we were talking just minutes before, I was like realizing how there's this internal world of sensation and connection. The Svadhisthana, for those that don't know, it's like it's our reproductive system as a woman, like the ovaries, the womb. And for the longest time, I was inhabiting this body, yet I had no relation with it whatsoever. So I couldn't feel anything. I could not feel if I had a pain on my left or on my right. I was so disassociated from body, and I rejected it for the longest time. I deemed it as weak, like my mind really was in control, and I was always living in the past or in the future. What I realized is that in order to feel, I need to be anchored in the present. So that was why, for the longest time, I felt I was living and feeling and feeling my feelings and emotions, but I could not access the feelings. The emotions I could, because I really have this very strong wave of emotion. It's impossible to ignore, but I would eat my emotions, or I would distract myself not to feel the emotions. But the feelings, I really feel now that I had a huge, and I still have a huge block. And it's exactly, it came through the really domination of the mind in my life. And so starting to engage with the shadow work, for me, it really has been a very hard process, because even when I thought I was engaging with the shadow, I was becoming it. I was not, I right? It was like, let's put a little bit of Nadia is laughing because she she saw it firsthand.
It was very intense, yes.
Yeah, and I could not see that. I could not see that one. And I was like, yeah, but I'm doing my work. Like, I am engaging with the shadow. I was becoming, I was losing myself to the shadow. And this
You
goes to my
became the
second.
shadow.
I became the shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like because we, most of us, in order to act socially and behave in this world, we are in direct connection with our ego and our persona to the world, but we are not in connection with the shadow. So it's hidden. It's pulling the invisible strings from behind the curtain of consciousness. And the thing is, for me, like, the moment I start to intellectualize it and even like enter the field of shadow and trying to do shadow work, it was like suddenly, like, the shadow was unleashed, like, was without any control whatsoever, and I was acting it out. But like, yeah, but it was interesting because I was in a safe container with Nadia. If I was in a normal context of like having to actually, I don't know, like work, or even having to like formal work, as in having to deal with family, having to deal with people other than a teacher, I think I would have undermined a lot of my relationships, professional relationship, personal relationship. I was not in my power, and I was not able to control it, and could not see it. And that's
Yes,
another a big blind
that's the
spot.
aspect. That's the main aspect, actually. If you see it,
Mhm.
it's different. If you cannot see it, and the thing is that one of your major shadows is that you know it better. So it was it was a big challenge. One of is like this intellectual superiority shadow. So and then this, when you have a shadow, right, in general, you try to especially if it's a superiority shadow, you then make everything else unimportant. So because of the intellectual superiority shadow gets fed with all this I find personally it depends very much, like to get some intellectual studies. It's very good for certain types. But when you already have this intellectual superiority shadow, and then you get fed a lot of information, you're like a snow, like, you know, these machines that spit snow when there's like a ski resort doesn't have any snow. Like a Swiss person, I know what it is. Like it just spits out everywhere information that would you've learned, because it's, you feel deep inside so insecure and so unstable emotionally. So you have to go into superiority thing, and you just spit out all the information that you learned about shadow without integrating anything. And yes, that was intense. The beautiful thing is that when not everybody manages to do that, a lot of people give up at that stage, because then, of course, what happened to you is like, I'm this mirror. I was just this mirror, and then you looked at me, and you got just by looking at me, you actually saw yourself.
Mm.
And you got so angry with yourself, but you thought it was with me. And then this whole shadow projections, yes, and yeah, I knew what was happening, but it's something that also, it's actually touching on another point I just quickly want to say it, but without getting away from the shadow, is that when you do things that you in a container that people cannot hold the space, or that you do something which is too fast, that can really, like, your soul can defragment. It can just go too much, too quick, and you can actually re-traumatize instead of healing, you know, if you don't know what's going on. Because in these moments, even though you intellectually understand, you disassociate from yourself, and you do not actually feel them, because whatever piece of information you get from the mind, you need to somehow bring it down into the body. Until we have fully embodied it, then we can ascend. We cannot ascend without descending first. The piece that we have all got this savior side as well is that you have this capability, you have this ability to step outside of yourself. You have this ability to go into this meta persona. Not everybody has that, but it helps with shadow work when you have this ability to watch yourself like in a movie with all characters around, and you go outside and you watch yourself. You know, that really helps.
Yeah.
And then actually see, you know, like sometimes you want to film a person, the mimics. The person thinks, with a food shadow, for example. I had it too. I've never seen myself with food shadow because I wasn't filmed, but I have seen Salomé's food shadow.
Let's introduce it. It's called Golomet.
Yes, it's called Golomet.
It was you that named it, and it was
yes, from Gollum, from Lord of the Rings, precious, you know, for her chicken bones were the diamond ring, you know, precious. And you know, the greed and the urge to eat that, literally very basic instinct.
Yeah.
Which is okay. It's just funny when then somebody like you can appear to this prim and proper, you know, and then Golomet takes over and you still think you're prim and proper, and everybody's in a kind of shock around you, but you think you're like just so prim and proper. Same thing, you know. It's we've all got those shadow sides of ours which are very obvious to the others, because our whole mimic changes. It's just something like a little monster coming from inside out. Or I have the fluff ball shadow, which is actually a sandwich shadow in between the one side of myself that I consciously portray to the outside, and the polar opposite of that side, which is in the dark, and it's becoming more and more conscious. But there's like a fluff ball shadow in between, which kind of plays games with those two sides. And this fluff ball shadow, I come across very strong in many situations, and I am truly. there's just some Achilles heel points, then suddenly my hair goes like ding, and I become all fluffy and all like agreeable and all. It's when this point gets hit, like the golomet comes out when you're hungry, of course, and this fluff ball comes out when there's another point, like it's like a trigger point, and then it's just my head goes ding, and I start to realize also how those aspects are showing up in a certain teams, like certain shadows show up in certain teams, and how the polar opposite in a certain shadows that are also golden shadows. There's certain it's not always negative, it's just what we are not aware of. And when you look it in the eye, like, hey, I see you. What happens, I've become way more open to criticism from people. I used to be very personally offended about criticism, like many people do, but everything that I have integrated, everything that I have been told once, I've been mirrored, or I had to really integrate it in body. If somebody says that to me, it doesn't do anything to me, because I know I have that side. I might not like it, but it doesn't shock me anymore. It's not like something I hide and from the world, and if it's seen, it's there's no shame to it. It's just yeah, I know I have it, and it's not that I particularly like it. And also certain things are just it's also in the eyes of the person who looks at you, you know, whatever, if that hidden side in you is triggering the other or not. And mostly you're triggered by the things you hide yourself.
Yeah, you're at least to me, like I really get it that most of my triggers are either things that I have and I don't allow myself to live, to embody, like this thing of the judgment. That was a big one for me, and still is.
Yes.
Is like I'm
Yes.
overly sensitive to other people's judgment because I do not honor the judgment that I carry, and I actually carry a lot of judgment within me. And
Yet you don't show it.
yet no, I repress it. I don't allow myself.
And that's why it's triggering when other people express it.
Yes, because it's like, how are you living my own truth, my
How
own life?
dare you say what I think?
Yes, exactly. But in those trigger moments, like you just project a lot, like and this is a very interesting thing that only now I'm starting to I it it was still in my it was something that I engaged consciously, but it's refining. It's starting to be more integrated. But it's like how when in our interactions with the other, and because of my astrological position, I really honor the relationships. I don't engage easily with people, but when I do, like I really see the dynamics unfolding, and I analyze it from different perspectives, like different points of view, and they always carry a lot of gold for me. But the thing is that I'm more and more I'm starting to realize how we don't see others objectively. We really see the others through our perspective, through our lens, the lens through which we see the world. That lens is not the same. It's so different. The filter through which you live the world carries your cellular memories, carries your past, carries your experience, and carries your values, and that will change with time if you're on committed to growth, ideally. But that also is so unique and so individual. And when you look into the other, it's not a, a lot of the times you don't see the other really for who that person is. You see some reflection of the other, but you also project gold. You do the positive projections, you do the negative projection, but then it's not really the other that you see. Only when you connect to essence, to soul, that's where I feel that then you get out of the intellect and you actually connect with the other soul. And that's the more objective kind of like parameter. But otherwise, and in most social dynamics that we have, we don't connect to the world, to the other. Yeah.
We don't. And it's a lot of the most relationships are actually woundships. You tap into each other's wounds. You have a purpose. That person has a purpose that fills a whole emptiness in you, that colludes with you, that emphasizes, or like, you know, gives you the feeling that you're right, that emphasizes your position. You have this big rage, or this feeling of like certain views, and then you join up, you gang up with another person who holds the same pain, or same, a lot of traumas. But then the problem is about when you have this trauma ships trauma ships, when the trauma hits again, then both of you go downhill, you know, it's like a downward spiral. So only when two individuals who are committing and devoting themselves to growth and self-work and individuation can actually have a relationship where it's really about the individual and not about what the other person, what role the other person plays in your life, what's the use for this person. Because some people, they serve a certain purpose in our life. This one person is for gratification, it's for this, it's for that. The feeling of belonging to something, or joint pain. It's a lot we hear, like when you, like in the films as well, like two people going through the same trauma, through the same pain. There was some traumatic, like a plane crash or something, or like some dramatic event that people afterwards, I just remember when the tsunami hit in Thailand back in, I don't know when, a long time ago. But there was actually this that people, they lost all their families and they joined up and they got married because they have this shared trauma. But it's maybe as individuals they wouldn't even have been compatible, but get a joint story. The same thing with the shadows, like you build groups, and but when you start healing, the more shadows you heal in yourself, the more you see it in the other, and then you start to separate them, and the true soul emerges. And only when those true naked souls connect, only then that's a real connection. Everything else is just really serving a purpose of either keeping a shadow undercover, or of self-gratification, whatever the purpose might be. But it's not what I consider a healed relationship. I'm talking about friendships, romantic and non-romantic relationships, both man, woman, doesn't matter. It is, and the most beautiful form of relationship to me is when both are on the path of growth. You know, you call each other out, you hold each other accountable, and you grow with each other. Because when I see more about myself, then I can also help you, and vice versa. And it's also two grown individuals that also realize maybe we have gone this part of the journey together, and now we just don't match anymore, but without holding grudges. It's just we have served our purpose. It's just there's no synchronicity, there's no synergy anymore.
Yes, yeah, that is an important point, because sometimes we don't honor that, you know, even you cannot promise the eternal future. There's a right time, there's a divine time for for something, but you can never promise forever. This was a thing that I'm still contemplating this line between freedom, which is a very strong value for me, and but also not avoid. I tend to leave my freedom sometimes too much, and so I avoid committing because I know I cannot promise forever, and not everyone is able to accept my commitment for the right now and foreseeable future. This is actually something that I'm still navigating through those realms. I still don't have that um, north node for me, but I know it plays a huge part of my evolution as a soul. I came from a north node in Aries, so the me, myself, and I structure of personality is very strong. The urge to be independent and self-sufficient. And Nadia is understanding that it's true. Yet
No,
when we
I also come from a me, myself, and I, and the queendom,
uh-huh.
south node, the Leo. We both come from fire, south nodes,
Uh-huh, exactly.
with a
And our
strong sense of self and self-importance.
yes, exactly. Yeah, you never, yeah, it's true. I've never understood that parallelism of both of our paths, but now yes, I see how it plays out. But your is more of a heart of the Leo, the heart,
Yeah,
and
Leo is a lot of heart.
yeah, mine is the individual will. It's
Mine
more,
is more queendom.
yes,
It's the queendom, and yours more the individual, the warrior.
yes, the warrior
You are
archetype
the
a lot.
warrior going into the balance.
Yes, the balance, the yes,
And
the
me
no.
is from leadership into co-creation,
Mm-hmm. The collective, no?
the
More.
collective, yes, part of the collective.
Yeah, because I feel yours is part of the collective, which is the polarity point is Aquarius, no?
Yes.
And mine is more, it's the relation. It's more like one to one. And I feel not necessarily. Yours is more one to whole kind of thing.
Yeah, but I like the one-on-one thing a lot because it's very well. No, it's one to many. Like Leo is me, I'm the leader, and anyway, but we're going into astrology about the relationship you were saying, about the commitment, about the. But
Yes,
it's about finding the balance there. You actually, it's like finding the balance. I also feel there's a time and a place in life. We go through different phases in life. And I truly feel we have to be at a certain point within ourselves until we can go into relating consciously, because we need to have healed certain aspects of our personality, of our personas, to be able to relate in a healthy manner, because otherwise we go into resonance with the same unhealed business with other people. This whole fluff ball shadow of mine, I haven't shared that with you yet, but I know it's trauma related. Some shadows are trauma related, some others are, there's many reasons. It's just also personality traits within yourself that you've realized as a child, which were not very popular in your surroundings, that you've put in a black bag, like Robert Bly says. I've mentioned it before. I really like this analogy. Like Robert Bly said, all these personality aspects in your childhood, because it's so essential for you that you have a roof over your head and food on your plate. So you need to be behaving in a certain way that your parents don't kick you out on the street at the age of 3 or something. So you start to tuck away certain personality aspects you into this black bag, because you realize instinctively and accurately that it is not something which is particularly honored in your surroundings. And that might be very different. Something that my parents maybe like, Salomé's parents dislike, and vice versa. It depends very much what you put into there, according to the surrounding you grew up in, or if there's space for your personality. There's also children who grow up in a space where there just is no space for them because there's too many problems around, not enough resources. So they put more into that bag. So it's also those, but there's also some extra shadows which happen later, which due to trauma, because it just hurts too much to deal with them. Since you have this bag already, you go like, okay, in there too. And then you develop certain patterns, psychological patterns and behaviors. They still express themselves, but they do not express themselves consciously. It's like steaming out from this black bag, taking on these golemettes and fluff balls and uglier creatures too. Actually personally, I feel more ashamed of fluff ball than I feel of the dark queen that I have as well, because I kind of personally, I like the dark but powerful personas better than I judge weak more than I judge dark. That's also my personal thing. So if I am outing myself as a fluff ball, having a fluff ball aspect, that to me takes more cringing than outing myself as something dark and powerful. It also depends. Some other person might find that way more difficult to it also depends on your past, where you grew up in, what was judged in what way. Exactly. And then it's showing up anyway. It comes out. It's like when you put a bag of fish, like a fish head somewhere, it starts to stink. So it smells. You think you've put the fish away, but it smells, and everybody can smell it. So it's still visible. And if you have this unconscious side in you, and then you go into relating, it's most likely that the person you meet with, especially when it's romantically, because it goes deep in the emotion, and when you have a sexual interaction, you go inside each other. So you literally go inside each other's body. And for the woman, it's even more because she takes it in. There is so much happening. It's all this privacy, because it's got to do with privacy, right? The sexuality is very private. The shadow is very private. So you tap into there. They get stirred up. So because instinctively you've chosen somebody that has a similar shadow or the polar opposite one, that's where the synergy is. So personally, at the moment, I'm very much dedicating myself to myself, to my personal growth. I do not have space at the moment in my life. I do not want to create that space. I don't know if that's going to be a few months or half a year or a year for any new relationship. Because I have some relationships I deeply care about, old ones, and they are very important to me. And there's not space at the moment for new one, which is all consuming, like a romantic relationship. That's a very personal decision, because I'm working on a piece at the moment that's coming up from the shadow into the light related to that, which is actually a triangular piece, which is touching on two other subjects, which is kind of a finale grande, or I don't know, it's probably not the finale, it's the first act of the finale grande epos. But it consumes me. I don't want to meet somebody, because if I meet somebody new now, at this moment in time, I will meet somebody with the same thing, because that's what my frequency is at the moment. That's where I'm resonating with new people in my life, because that's what I'm working on. So I don't have time to go there, so it's a conscious decision. But there are times about the relating where it's perfect. So we need to know where it's coming from. Is it fear? I don't want to relate. Is it avoidance, or is it a conscious decision based on knowing oneself?
That is so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. I feel, because by sharing your process in such an honest and, raw way. I feel it's so important in this day and age where people, like, they feel this pressure and they live their fears, and they are sometimes not conscious of where their limits and their boundaries need to be at a certain moment in time. They do not honor the self, and they compromise the self in order to comply with the world's expectation or recipes for success. And I feel it's so important in this day and age to even, like, really just sharing with the world our own mandate in a way. Like, this is the season of my life where I'm at, and this, like, it's taking a lot of real estate, a lot of emotional, energetic real estate, like, to be working with this part of my psyche and my shadow, which I need to integrate. And I don't have more space to offer to other human being right now. And yeah,
Romantically,
yes, romantically, I think it's
mostly, yeah.
because that is the part of your shadow you are integrating,
Yes,
right?
and parting, it's like a triangular shadow. That's one of the, that's this triguna.
It's like the triangle of Bermudas, no?
Yes, the Bermuda Triangle or the Yoni Mudra.
Yeah, but I really feel it's so important, especially with, intimacy and relationships, conscious relationships. I feel there's in the collective sphere, there's a lot of fear to be alone, to be by
Mm.
oneself. And a lot of people, they start to relate out of fear. And if that is the base frequency upon which you go out there and you cast out the world, first you're in this need frequency. So you are going to there's a desperation that maybe you don't feel, but it's being sensed outside. And chances are, really, one will go into a relationship not in the power, not in relation, conscious relation to the self, because one is casting out whoever to fill that need, that void that one feels. And so it's really important to from time to time to really evaluate which season of life are we in. This was something that I started to touch upon when I moved back to
Yeah.
Portugal. And I felt, you know what, my soul she's in the winter of her life, and she wants to hibernate by herself. She wants to integrate the lessons that she learned in India. She wants to really take the time for herself and to recoil and to nurture. And I felt a lot of pressure from the outside world, even from people that genuinely cared about me, but I really felt how they projected their own inner space onto me, and they would say, "Yeah, but don't aren't you too young to be living by yourself, secluded? Like, I'm doing this because I want to, and because it's really this season of life that I feel needs also space, time, and solitude to be anchored in the self." I really feel that.
And it's coming with you. It's totally coming from an aligned place. I feel that. And also when you're talking, when the alignment of the voice, the mimic and the shared message, when that aligns, it says more about the people who say that to you than it says about yourself. When somebody feels that there is something needs to be at a certain time in your life, it is their perception that you need to be a certain way, that they need to be a certain way. The amount of pressure that people put on themselves because they feel they have to be a certain way at a certain time in their lives. Yes, of course, there's certain times which harmony as well. Of course, there's a certain, they're like, there's parallels with other people's life stories because of the hormones and what's happening currently in the world, etc. But we all have our own life choice. I will never understand that. And even though I have a judgmental archetype, but judgmental in both ways, that doesn't go into there at all. What one's personal life choice, if somebody chooses to be single or in a relationship, live in the country or in the city, be rich, like consciously choose to make career or consciously choose not to, or consciously want to have 20 kids or no kids, or I got married at 22. And everybody thought that's the reason, because I want to have 20 kids. And when I didn't have kids, you know, all this like, why are you getting married if you don't have kids, and so young and so late, and so why are you doing this? I am the one who lives my life. I'm not hurting anybody by getting married or not getting married, or having kids, not having kids, as long as I take responsibility for my actions. It is very it's also coming from a very wounded place when you feel. I have this situation actually. I had this discussion with 2-3 women that I share friendships with from a long time, and they're similar age group like me, and there's this pain of being in the menopause or post. I'm just going in now, but there's some women who just passed or entering it, so that and it's this relationship thing, like the last chance to get a man, and it's like a rat race. And I'm like, I'm now, this me is talking, somebody who went to clairvoyance in the past to hear about my my destined man. And I was, whenever I had a chance to speak to any coach or any setting, I would always ask about the relationship thing first, about sacred relating later when I got more spiritual. It was so omnipresent. It was so important to me. It was so, and that's me speaking, right? So this is not something I haven't gone through. It's just that for me personally, something very different happened in menopause. It's like this, I don't have this sexual urge at the moment at all. That was strong with me before, so there's a certain peace on that level, hormonally seen. So I feel I have this freedom to do the things I truly care about, and that is my spiritual journey, my spirituality, connecting with God. It is my me time, my individuation, getting to know myself better, becoming the best version of myself. So I have to do less work in my next life. To teach, to be with my animals, to be with a group of close people who really on the same page, interested in the same things. And if I feel a certain freedom around it, to not have the feeling I need to anymore. And when I meet a man, the chapter is not closed for me. It will be somebody who is like me. And especially once I've looked at this trigona thing, Bermuda Triangle thing, I know that I will come out, or I'm about to come out different on the other side. I will not fall into the same traps.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm done repeating myself. That's the thing that I can say. And when you, at your age, I wish I'd given myself the freedom to feel that way that you feel now. I really wish. And I think it's admirable because it comes from an aligned place. It doesn't come from a running away from a place. If it comes from an avoidant place, then it's different. then it's something you need to go into it. But when it comes from at the moment, it's not the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I actually feel we share this longing, for self-actualization, like when we are not ones to when we identify something which, needs alignment, needs correction, but when we identify our old like the pattern and we see how distorted it is, we are committed to solve that, to go through that and we are willing to give up whatever it takes. And I feel
Yes.
that's a shared quality of both of
Yes.
us. And what I really want to touch upon is that the process in itself is hard. The shadow,
Yes.
I feel it's the hardest in the
Yes.
spiritual journey, because it touches every wound and ache and pain, and it's like you are all it's
Mm.
for those that don't know, but it's like this, you're almost like masochist
Mm.
going into it, but on the other, even when you feel there's no light and you're really in that darkness, what I really want to leave this message, that the power that comes through it's really through the process, as one goes and walks in the shadow, there's this inner power being released. So it's,
Mm.
even if you're in pain, and it is a painful process, it is it takes a lot of time. It really does, especially for those that really are go deep. It takes a lot of energy, time, and really still going against
Dedication.
dedication, going against every urge that you have. um, but as you go, and it's really like almost like every single day I have this inner fire building from within, and I see how my posture changes, the intonation changes, the lapses, like the time, it's like the time feels different in a way. When I hit a core wound, a core point, I have the insight, and then suddenly it's like you enter acceleration in regards to time, and so you're there in the situation, and you feel the urge coming, you feel the shadow, but you're not acting it again. And then
Mm.
a lot of release comes from that, especially if you're conscious in those very moments. You are like, wow, like I'm
Mm.
no longer that old self, or really you like the thoughts change. You still have the shadow will always be an aspect of your personality that came with you and will die with you. Yet, instead of like, because you suppress it or repress it, instead of leaking your power from the behind the curtain, that shadow is actually can start to help you, can start actually to fire you in a way and give you power.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because it actually it takes power away. Like when
yeah,
you suppress something, you use so much of your energy to keep something in the dark. When it's actually out, you release that energy and you can use it for different things proactively, not to suppress.
and at least for me, I feel, I don't know if it's with all, like most people, but at least with me, I know this 100%, that my shadow carries my creative gold.
Mm. No,
It's
it's
something.
like that. It's
Yeah,
the shadow is in between you and the creativity.
exactly. So
Mm.
it's this phase that I know I really need to continue to, and I have several guardians. I also know, like, I feel them. I have different tests to pass, but it's really, I know I'm on my path, and that, what really fuels me to go through that painful process is also understanding that, that's where I came. I chose to be in this life, in this moment, to
Mm.
to to get to that elixir, which is, I really have to go through the challenges and provations, because if not, like, also, what would we here be doing if not that? No.
It's how you, this again, the glasses you put on and the perspective you give to life. Like you and I, we carry the glasses that we are born in this lifetime to become the best versions of ourselves. And we are born with a life purpose. We are born to come into our power, to be of service. And to be of service means we need to be in our power to be of service. And it doesn't mean in a depleting way, because if we do what we're meant to do, what we are born to do, then it flows through us and it doesn't come as an effort, it comes effortlessly. I see the, yeah, that's what your perspective. So it's the glasses you wear. I see the shadow work when you, the analogy on the physical, because it's also very psychological. It's very, it might feel a bit like masochism to some people to do that. And there's this, it's also a trauma response that you just want to go to the light, this just wanting to ascend. It's a trauma response because to go down would be, to descend would be too painful. So when you want to look at it on a anatomical level, it's like you broke an arm and the bone grew back in the wrong way. So you cannot actually do anything with your right hand. Your handwriting is not good. You have problems. You have pain every day, which really has an effect on your life. So you have the choice of going on like that, and it's going to get worse and worse. It's going to get inflamed, and you take medication, or you can break the arm again, and you can go through real pain, and but then put it properly together, and you'll be good. You know, that kind of thing. So shadow work is like breaking the arm again.
Oh, yes.
And then afterwards grow it back in alignment. In your life, you know, this, when you have these things, these repetitive patterns, when you go and say, why is this always happening to me? Why do I always meet the wrong man? Why don't I find a job? Why am I constantly sick? Why are people using me? Why am I always having accidents? Or why are all men leaving me? Why? And then this feeling of not knowing what is actually happening, why it's happening, and the fear of it happening again, and this total lack of control, because you just don't know what's going on. Most of the times that has to do with your shadow, or the frequency you're in, the resonance you're in, the way with what kind of people or events you go into resonance has a lot to do with unhealed aspects of self. So the good news is that you actually can come into empowerment, because you start to recognize patterns, you start to understand why things are happening to you, and you get an opportunity to heal that wound in yourself, or to get to know to that shadow in yourself, so you can transform and transmute it. It will not go away, but you can become the boss of this shadow. Like you say, it's like a team in your, like you want, you know, and you're like a boss and you run a restaurant, you have 20 employees, and then everybody does what they want. It becomes chaos, but you know, you still got personalities there, but you have to create a system. And the same thing with your shadows. You have to get them in, you have to get those ducklings in line, you know. And yes, you're like the conductor, no? You want to be in charge of your internal system. And I'm not really talking about control, just to get to know it, to give every single aspect of yourself a possibility to express itself, and then to be understood, to be seen, to be healed, to be transmuted. And it's not an easy way. Honestly, I think it's the only way. It's not easy. and you just have to take a plunge, go through, and you can come out differently the other way. And you will change those glasses you're wearing, because once you're going through this purging process, the conditionings that you get from society of how you should be and shouldn't be, it just go like, what is she talking about? It's like, one of the worst things for me was, I was the person who watched things like Bridget Jones.
Me too. No judgment.
But in the sense of like, don't care what people say, you know. I think even she in the third film that I haven't seen, she actually came into this position that she didn't care anymore. So she also made this process. But it's this story of like, the worst thing is that you have to go alone to somebody's wedding, you know, when you're single again. And it's like when you look at it, when you have different glasses, you like the glasses I'm wearing now, it's like, huh? Why is that? What's the problem? It doesn't matter if I'm in a happy relationship, in a good relationship that serves me and serves him, serves both of us, because you should be a valid added value to each other's life. Yeah, if not, if I know everybody or nobody, what difference does it make? It just doesn't anymore.
Yeah, this was actually something even when I was not so spiritually connected, was something that never, but I never really caused me any confusion. But I feel like with me, it was because I really love being myself in my inner world. So even going to these weddings, I had a blast by myself always. And because I have my food thing, I was like, oh, you opportunity to just eat. Hi, but yeah. Anyways,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's always an incentive you get out of every situation.
yeah. But I know it's a thing because some friends of mine have it, and even like the conversations that people have at these weddings, it would act as a trigger.
Yes. And it's just something that's come up in my personal life again through friends I've
Mm.
talked to, the pain they feel about being single. And
Mm.
it's like, and then I'm like, I'm getting into the coaching mode. And then they say, but you're single too. I said like, yeah, yes. It just doesn't, it's not actually relevant if I'm single or not.
Because it's not a weight to you. To you, it's a choice.
It's a
You
choice.
so you know in your power. You do not feel like a victim because you don't have a partner. You feel
No,
like
it's a choice. And it is still a choice, which of course in India is very weird.
uh,
But maybe it took India to get past that. And just something I want to say, I think we slowly wrap up for today, but just something I feel very important to say, and it might ruffle some feathers,
you
because I
want.
wanted to say that before, is when you're in a relationship and you actually start the spiritual journey, it is like, you know, it's too, like there's this woundship. I didn't quite conclude that, but I think it's important. There's this relationships when you're in an unconscious way, they also, you meet in a certain phase of your life, and it's most likely if you're two unhealed versions that you fulfill a role in each other's life, which is that life, that phase you're in. So if one part starts a healing journey and the other doesn't, the probability is really quite high that there will be an alienation. There will be it doesn't even have to be a falling out, but there's a resonance goes, because let's not maybe do it hierarchical, but it can also be like this. It's just that the resonance fades. And then wanting to hold on to a relationship, or it can also be friendships, of course, for anything that is just not serving, that's holding us back. My circle of friends pretty much I have very few friends left, but the ones I have, they are genuinely like the old friendships I have, you know, they might have gone a different journey, but we've always met again. And it was, the resonance stayed. And there's something very powerful and beautiful about risking again and again to lose each other. Not because you want to do it because you want to lose it, but just to give each other this freedom of evolving, to give each other permission to grow, and then to do each other whatever needs to be done for that person, and then meet again and go like, wow, respect. And they can actually it can grow. There's such beauty possible, which there are people who say they've had 5 relationships when they were together, maybe 40 years, and both were devoted to growth. And each time they risked losing each other. But each time they took all the risk, but also, and I think that's an important thing, the dedication to meet each other again, but not risking losing themselves. So it's not this loyalty or anything. It's like, you know, you can have a dedication to each other to try to make it work, but it can never be at the cost of not growing.
I got goosebumps. And I feel that's how we need to wrap up this one. It was a beautiful, very strong message. Thank you, Nadia. We see you back again.
Namaste.
Namaste.